NFL podcast. Is this really the offseason?
Welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. My name is Dan Hanzus. Come to you from a room filled with some heroes. Marc Sessler, Gregg, Rosenthal. You know, this is not like any other offseason. Really, there is no offseason, as Marc has reminded us constantly over the last 7 years of the show, at least not for us. We're always busy, and we got the draft coming up now, free agency in the rear view now, and then the training camps, and then the season, and you know it just goes on and on and on. But also, this has been very different than every other offseason, obviously. Chris Wesseling, our great friend and former colleague on the show, and passed away, of course, in February. And you know, we've talked about it a lot, boys. You know, just trying, you know, remembering Wes and mourning his loss and moving forward, or at least attempting to. And I want to bring in somebody here as we start today's show, Zak Keefer of The Athletic, who did a great job remembering Wes in a piece in The Athletic. Really great stuff. So to start today's show, before we get to all the football stuff, want to talk about that. Welcome, Zak, to the Around the NFL podcast.
Thank you, Dan. It is an honor to be on with you guys. One of my favorite NFL podcasts. So I wish it was under different circumstances, but I have learned a lot about the late, great Chris Wesseling over the last couple of months.
You certainly have. I mean, that is you really did a great job in it, and it required a sensitive touch, and you were always wary of that. And when you connected with all of us and you spoke with all of us, Ricky, Wesseling brothers, really appreciated you understanding kind of the sensitivity of the topic. And I think you really, as I texted you this morning, you kind of nailed the essence of the man. What did you learn about Wes?
I mean, can I be honest? It was hard to nail the essence of this man because he was a character. I think, Marc, at some point you were like, you know, Wes always loved to collect characters in his life. He was the greatest character of all. Yeah. And I think you guys all kind of told me that in your own different way, because you each kind of had a different relationship with him. But what, you know, stood out to me was this was a guy that for a long time, you know, a lot of people know him as the Around the NFL guy, the football nerd, all that. Before that, he was this guy that was really looking for something, right? He really was kind of this wandering soul, and he was looking for meaning in his life and in his job. And it all kind of came together when Gregg stumbled upon this 50,000 word, you know, football story he wrote for his old website, and everything really changed. And, you know, like I wrote in the story, heed the call, but what a character. I mean, I couldn't get people off the phone. They wanted to talk about this guy so much. And it was, and at the same time, like when you're writing about this guy, there's a high bar to clear, right? Like you got to get this guy right. And he was such a fun, unique individual. I could almost hear Wes in the back of my mind saying, you better get this right, man. You better do me justice. You know what I mean? It feels like that would be something he would say.
You sure that wasn't Nick Wesseling's voice? His brother?
Yeah, Nick was great. But at the end of our conversation, we talked for like 40 minutes. He was like, now, just so you know, you better not screw this up. You better get my brother right. And I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, I better not, because he's got Wes has got like what, 6 brothers? Like they'd all be hunting me down if I did his brother right. So the pressure was immense.
I would just say that, you know, Wes looking down on this, I think he would have immense respect for how you carried out this project. You know, I remember talking with you. We all had these long initial conversations, and your level of, I think, emotional awareness and sensitivity mattered a lot. And you're more than just a reporter. And it's like, you never really know how some of these projects, when you're a writer, come to you in life. And would I have thought Zak Keefer would be the guy to write this? Like, you know, when everything happened, I don't know I would have known that. But like in the end, it came to you and you did such a respectful, powerful job with it that I really think Wes would smile down on what you've done. So thank you.
Thanks, Marc. That really like means the world to me. And as I talk to you guys, I mean, I've been through something similar. And, you know, as you guys go through like stages of grief, like those are real, man. And that whole, like, it hit me like a ton of bricks when you talked about having to leave the podcast for a couple minutes. And Dan, you were like, you know, I'll think about him on Sunday nights when I want to text him. And it's like anyone who's ever lost someone, they've been through those moments. And I became invested in this story because one, Wess was awesome. The stories made me laugh. And then there were moments that almost I had to get emotional too. And I didn't know Wess very well. We might have said hi in passing, but I feel like I know him now. And it was through you guys, and it was through Erica, and in hour-long talks with Colleen, and the text message she would show me that Wess used to send her. I mean, like, there was going to be a party one night, and Colleen couldn't make it back in town, and Wess told her, no, we're going to hold off. We're not going to do it unless the whole group can be together. What a fun friend to have. And it came through to that. It came through to me. Like, all of us want to have friends like this in our lives. And you guys had that guy. And it sounds like you guys really, really became really tight.
Yeah, that's really well said, Zach, because, I think when you lose someone, you think of the family, and that is who we think of first is like Keisha and his family. But when you talk about him as a friend, he meant so much to so many people as friends. And like in our world and in everyone's world, like those are such meaningful relationships. They were to him. Like, I think that would have been one of the highest compliments you could give him, was that he was a great friend. And he was to us all differently, but to so many other people. And so I think that's well said, that it's like really hard to pinpoint the essence of Wess, because there was a lot to him. He could be stubborn, he could be funny, he could be, as kind as can be. But I think hitting on what he meant as a friend to so many people, us and Colleen and everything, of course, in the article, is really meaningful. And it's nice because we, in this COVID time, so much has been lost. But I think the ability to honor and celebrate and mourn has really been so messed up for so many people around the world, and now we've been affected by that. And so we're going to have a chance to celebrate Wess all together. But I think something like this, where we're getting to celebrate him in print and sort of in memoriam, like, I think that's important. Like, there's a reason people have been mourning and getting together and celebrating and honoring people for as long as there have been people. You know what I mean? It's because it helps. It's because it's meaningful. And so that really helps us. Thank you.
And, you reading the story, and that was really well said, Gregg, like reading the story, even I'm reading what Zach wrote. And again, it's in The Athletic. Please check it out, about Chris. It's like, I don't know, I keep on waiting for the story to change as I'm reading it, that there's going to be a better ending. And then your story ends in kind of an abrupt way to me, not because of the writing, but just because there is no kind of happy ending to it. And that's still something that messes with you. And like, we're planning a trip to Tybee Island at some point this year as a group to celebrate Wess. And, it's just like the fact that he won't be there with us. What we're going to do is celebrate him. And we know that's something that would make him happy, and it's a great way to pay respect to him. But it is a process for us. And I think, Zach, that's what your story did a nice job hitting on, that we're trying to figure it out. And the listeners are amazing. They've been so supportive of us. And even look at the comments of your story, Zach, immediately a huge outpouring in the comment section, people sharing Wess memories, what he meant to them. And that to me is another tribute to the man.
The one thing that jumped out a lot was how real he was. Like, he wasn't a saint, right? And you guys know, in this business, there's a lot of egos, and there's a lot of that. There's fake. This guy was not that. I mean, there's that little story that a couple people told me about the NFL Network coach kind of being like, yeah, we just, some things we can work on. And Wess is like, I will not be taking your advice. Like, he didn't play the game. He loved football for what it was. And I wrote in there, like, he wasn't in it for the clicks. And that's something that I admire. Like, he was doing 50,000 word stories on NFL stuff, and he wasn't getting paid a dime for it. Like, he loved the work for the right reasons, and he didn't play the ego game, and he didn't fall into that stuff. And a lot of people, I feel like, in this industry kind of do. And then to your point, Dan, I cannot begin to tell you the amount of outpouring of feedback I've gotten already in 5-6 hours. Like, I haven't been able to open my phone And that's not because of the story I did. That's because of Wess, right? Like, I'm getting messages from people in Australia and England and Finland. And you know what? The one thing I hear over and over is I've never loved a guy more that I've never met. That's the kind of impact. And you guys know this. You guys have done shows all over the world, and you guys have had this huge following you've built up. But that's blown me away, how much this guy touched these people, whether it was cancer, whether it was football, whether it was, whatever. I mean, writers, fans, people who don't even like football, people who've never listened to the podcast have reached out to say, I didn't even know this guy. And I loved every word of the story because of who he was. So you guys had a good one. He was an awesome guy.
Well, I think you made, reading some of the comments, I think there were a lot of people out in America and beyond at a corporate job and maybe, sitting there and reading it at work and suddenly finding themselves shedding tears because it's like we're all still sort of going through it in these very unpredictable stages. But I love that you wove in some of Wes's humor too, because like that shouldn't be lost. Like he's the guy that like when he'd have a Wesselmania, there'd be like, he'd invite podcast listeners, which we it wasn't always something we were aware was going to happen. And then like, he didn't suffer fools, but he'd be anyone's friend. And some of my most like delicious Wes moments are like when we would be, in studio trying to tape something and he just would have a meltdown over like the headset or things like that. Like when he get wound up, like there's only one Wes like that. So when you mentioned like hearing his laugh and his voice, like, I definitely feel that all the time. And the way that you opened the story by mentioning the silence that's been left behind on this show, but just in our lives, like I thought that captured how I've been feeling, how we've been feeling so perfectly.
Yeah, that hit me hard. Like when you told me that, and then a couple other you guys were like, I can hear his voice, but it's not there. That's something a lot of people can relate to, right? Like when you've gone through a loss. So, and as hard as it was to write that at the very end, like you mentioned, Dan, like you're going to hear his voice for a long time and it's going to kill you. He was that special.
I heard it this morning because I had struggled just to read it and I knew you were going to be on the show. And it's like, I almost heard him saying, it's like, just read, finish it. It's like, because I remember this other podcast that our friends did about his first battle too. And, like a similar thing then. And I just started thinking he talked about too, there's just magic people in your life. And sometimes they're there for a little bit. Sometimes they're there for a long time. Like Wes was with us. And he was just one of those people like, and I don't know, it's just like everything about it. I think of just the one time I really met you, Zach, randomly. Like I always associated this trip I had with Indianapolis to do a story about Frank Gore with Wes, because because that was when he got his first surgery, right when he got cancer. It was the first thing I did when I got back home from that trip. What was see him, and I don't know. It's like all these years later that you're writing about him, and it's just something that's been part of like I don't know why I'm surprised, but I'm surprised how much of my life I have these sort of thoughts of these connections that Wes was such a big part of, like who we all were as people, and this is another one, and I think he would love what you did, and he would appreciate it for sure. So we do thank you, Zach.
Yeah, we really do, Zach, and part of what I feel like is our responsibility is helping to keep Wes's memory alive, and sometimes, and I've had a lot of like thoughts just to myself, like what does it mean to do this podcast if one of us isn't around anymore? Well, one reason to do it is it's to keep Wes in people's memories, and Zach, what you wrote, that's going to be there forever, digitally, and whenever people want to learn more about Chris, Zak Keefer, your piece in The Athletic, nailed it. So if you haven't read it, please read it. And again, Zach, we just say thank you for doing it the right way and honoring a great man.
Yeah, thanks for your guys' help and for answering 45 text messages from me and for answering all my questions and really talking about something that's really, really hard and still really raw for you guys. So
I'm looking forward to seeing you in person, Zach. Like next Combine or Super Bowl, whenever we're all allowed to be safely together, we can throw one back. Maybe at the bar where Wes loved in Indianapolis, where
Well, if we're going to honor Wes, we're going to throw more than one back. Zach, just be prepared. And
I'm in.
Hopefully,
he also loved multiple bars, by the way.
Right?
Greg,
Yeah, that's
just
true.
to let you know.
Let's not narrow it down here. Zach, thank you again, and best of luck in the upcoming season. Does great jobs covering the NFL and the Colts. Zak Keefer, thank you, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
All right, there he goes. Yeah, that was awesome. He just did such a great job with it, boys. And I think, when he first reached out to us all, and he did that right as well. He kind of reached out to us individually, taking our temperature on it. There is an initial bit of trepidation. Is like, do you want to kind of be on record talking about him? And is it going to come out right? Because you don't have control, obviously, over the final product. But ultimately, I know, we're plugged in. Gregg, you're very good in knowing like who's legit and who's not in league circles. We lean on you with that. And Zach just seemed like somebody who thought we could handle it. And I mean that sincerely. Like it as time goes on. And one thing that I've learned from this, and everyone means well. Everybody means well. In the NFL, as I've said on the show, all the people behind the scenes, shadowy league figures, colleagues, everybody was super cool. In the wake of Wes's passing in February. But like what happens with loss and people that are, truly close to somebody is the world moves on, and people that knew Wes and respected Wes, they say the right things and they mean it, 95% of them, but then life moves on. That's just the way life is. But then for the people that are really close to someone that goes, you're still there and you're still trying to figure it out. And we're at a certain place that's been really hard. Lakeisha is at a place that we can't fathom, and there's just layers to it. So I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this other than to say that this is an ongoing process. It feels like it happened yesterday. It feels like a long time ago. But the fact that it was only,
a little over
2 months ago?
A little over 2 months.
2.5 months ago. It's that's unbelievable.
Soon.
I really like what you said there, Dan, because I think number one, and this is not a surprising, result from what's happened, but our group, for all the ups and downs we've had, our larger group, not just the three of us and Ricky, but larger, I think we've grown like immeasurably closer. And it's a lot of like hours alone,
Yep.
But we'll keep doing him proud. Like he's our friend,
Yep.
I think some shows like, we're trying to figure out the balance of things too. And, some shows we don't talk about them. Some shows we do, but it's all, it's always there. It's funny. I wish I told Zach this privately too. You mentioned like knowing, like Zach just a little bit. Wes and I had a conversation. We would always talk like we're kind of ranking beat writers or ranking beats, like the athletic. And I knew that Zach. That's
some real scientist, by the way.
I knew that Wes was a fan of the Athletic Colts beat. And I knew he knew Zach. I talked about that trip that I had with going to see Frank Gore and stuff. And we talked about, they're really good. Zach and Stephen Holder on the Colts beat, and that sort of thing means something. And it's almost like I love that I had that thing in my head, my ear from years before, like because it was meaningful for us to move forward. And we will go to the lesbian bar. That's the one I'm talking about in Indianapolis.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it was its character that
karaoke-ish bar. Yeah.
Right.
But we don't know
it's
in a COVID
smoky,
reality.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, that's true. It might not be for a year or two. Well, hopefully, it's back.
Is it still a lesbian bar? We don't know. We don't know. But maybe one day we'll find out.
That's where I actually met. I met Freddie Kitchens at that bar. It is not a lesbian bar. It is that on that one particular evening, it was a karaoke event that seemed to involve lesbians.
Hey, Rick, I'm going
just
to bring
in general,
Ricky.
though, Wes punched above his weight with lesbian friends. Like half of his friends from Tybee were lesbians. So it's like that was just the circle that Wes was rolling.
Yeah,
with,
what do you need? Your
thing.
lesbian correspondent.
Yeah, my lesbian correspondent, Erica Tembosi.
I'm like sobbing about Wes.
Erica,
like, hey.
wipe away your tears and tell me, is lesbian bar the proper nomenclature?
You can call it girls' night.
Depends on the bar. Some
Yeah, but
bars,
there really aren't a lot of lesbian
What
bars.
are we talking about?
They don't bring enough money. Guys spend money. They make more money than women. They have ladies' nights at gay bars, but there really statistically aren't lesbian bars.
Thank you, Erica. Ricky, anything you wanted to, as we get back on track here?
That was, by the way, that was an excellent report filed by you right there.
That was excellent. We might need the developing news drop on that one. But Ricky, you were interviewed also, obviously, for that piece. Anything you wanted to add there?
I don't know if I can. It was beautifully done, and you guys summed it up perfectly. I'm just like, I have this huge photo of him behind me, and it's in my living room. I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment where my setup is, so I'll be doing my workouts, and it's funny. Every time I turn around after doing a hard set or push-ups or whatever, I see Wes kind of laughing at me, and I talk to him. It's like my whole life is in this one room, and it's like sometimes I'm like talking to a damn photograph, but I hear his voice. He's telling me, it just doesn't feel real still.
It would mean a lot to him, wherever Wes is. Know that photo is behind you, because that, again, just he meant so much to all of us, and in different ways, as Zach alluded to. We all had kind of different relationships with Wes, and that's kind of a measure of the man too. That he kind of could live in so many areas and connect with people on so many different levels. Right.
I work out.
Well done.
We get it.
Oh man, listen, it's not like you transition to a regular football podcast after having conversations like that. And I'm not doing the line because I don't like when people do it. It's like, this is what Wes would have wanted. Yeah, but he would have wanted us to talk football today and not make it just all about the sadness of the situation on balance. So let's talk football.
He liked like a little attention. He did, like everyone. He liked.
Well,
I mean,
it's about me. Where did that come from? So.
Right. We've all got a little ego, but he didn't like too much. Right. He would want to move it on at a certain point for sure.
Yeah. So let's do that. And just one more call to the article. Go find it. I know it's behind a paywall, which is tricky, and I would never tell you to find it through ways that aren't paying for The Athletic, because it's a very good website. But find the article however you can, and check out the ATN subreddit as well for discussion on it. All right. Big show today. Zach, obviously, awesome guest. We have another guest coming up later, Nate Tice, who is really a guy that we like and respect in the draft game. And we're going to have him on the show to talk about some prospects that are jumping out to him. The draft is not far off. I know you said we're in the, what did you call it in the last show, Marc? The teens of April, or I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember anything I said on this show, so I don't know what I said.
An anonymous time of the year. Although I did think after the show, like, you were kind of ragging on April a little bit, but Colton is an April baby. And me and your wife shared the same birthday, also in April, so a little bit of an unnecessary pop there.
And my father, so I've checked
and the old
every
man.
Offensive box possible.
And Sessler, in the biggest of all spots, gets taken down a notch. Proud of me now, Dad?
Well, it was not my total intention, but you're right. The results are unchanged.
It hurt. It stung. I'm going to be honest with you. So we're going to have Nate on, and also Gregg wrote a banger on the all the GMs in the league. And Gregg, a little bit of a twist. You want to get into it? Well, we're doing news first.
We could do whatever you want first.
All right, let's do this. Let's do some news, get caught up there, hit Gregg's GMs, and then bring in Tice. What a show. Not Mike Tice. And Nate Tice, does he keep the pencil behind his ear? I guess you'll have to wait to find out. Like the old man, Mike. Always had that number 2 pencil behind his ear.
Yep.
Had a lot of fun with that.
He was Matt
Patricia
also famously missed
Patricia. He also famously missed a draft pick in the first. I mean, not all on him, but the Vikings did. You remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think maybe that is something that Nate would not want to comment on. But
he probably doesn't want to get too into like the dad thing. I'm sure he gets that a lot. But so I'll say it for him. Mike Tice did a lot more winning than people remember. Right. Because it did end poorly. There were some fun stories people had fun with. But he did a sneaky amount of winning. That people forget.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he would respect his dad, unlike Marc with Ed. I mean,
I don't know what is. I don't know. I'm not sure where we're going here with that. I respect Mike Tice and my father. How about that?
Nailed it. let's do some news.
Now, I've always said I'm going to go until the wheels come off. And they finally have fallen off. Due to an injury last year, I'll be making my official announcement of my retirement from football.
There he is, Julian Edelman, Patriots great, one of the more productive and successful wide receivers in the history of that esteemed franchise. Listen, I don't hold anything against him. These players, they give up so much to build football careers, and if they have a really successful one like Julian Edelman did, who am I to mock his retirement video? But I will say the 360 pan around Julian Edelman at midfield of Gillette Stadium with him just looking around the stadium in, I guess, awe and reverence. And really going for it. It probably took about 30 seconds. And then he began his monologue. That was the good stuff. That's the cringe comedy that I enjoy.
It is. Watching that, I was just like, this is one of those things. If it was any other team, favorite player, I would just be mocking this so hard. But when it's your player, you're just like, yeah, take whatever time you need, Julian. By the way, did you make it to the very end? You probably didn't.
I did not.
Where a spaceship beamed him up, which was a pretty big tonal shift. I'm not even joking. I liked it. It added a little. I'm absolutely serious. It added a little levity to what was very self-serious.
Yeah, but wait a second. He put so much effort into building up the gravitas. You can't. It's a total disconnect.
It didn't really make sense. It was kind of like in a Judd Apatow movie. Sometimes they suddenly change tone a little hard. It doesn't quite work, but it was fun. I like that he added that to the.
It was Julian Edelman's "This Is 40" moment.
I always like Julian Edelman is and I think I probably mentioned this before, but the first person that I interviewed, first player I ever interviewed at NFL.com. And it was like when he was essentially unknown. I mean, he was
7th round pick.
Well, he still, though, he had this like beautiful long Thor-like hair. And now this was the same day where Dan and I both were dispatched. I think they were kind of testing to see, if we could even do this.
These guys got chops.
We had the chops. Dan went and interviewed Brandon Lloyd, and I'll let Dan explain that. But I learned that day that version of Edelman, I think the whole beam me up and what he was in that announcement, he's really evolved as a person. I mean, he's not tight-lipped like some Patriots players were, but he was back then, and it was like 5 questions with Julian Edelman. I could not get him to say anything at all. And in fact, I even asked if he had tried to get funny, if he had molded his hair off of Thor, the Marvel character, and he just looked at me like, this person is a nut. This person's a total nut. And Dan's interviewing Brandon Lloyd and I look over and he's like, they're both giggling and laughing and enjoying each other. And it's just like, I learned a lot about the Patriots culture that day.
Yeah, he never really got off that too much with the media, but he was such a fascinating player. And the Hall of Fame argument that everyone's been having on Twitter this week is so annoying. Because, look, I'm usually the first one to talk Hall of Fame.
Relentless.
I'm interested in the Hall of Fame as an entity, but, sometimes you just wish you could just talk about what he was as a player, because it was so fascinating. I think there was levels to him. First of all, he had like an uncannily similar career to Troy Brown, which to me was Mr. Patriot. It's the only jersey I own. When I think of the 2000s, in terms of the Patriots, I think of Troy Brown. When I think of the 2010s, I think of Julian Edelman. Obviously, Brady is, the guy who puts it all together, and Gronk is like a superior player. But to me, those were their 2 glue guys, and we're going to talk glue guys on our TV show this week. And Edelman was a return guy who was an incredible returner, like one of the best of the last 15 years as a returner. Just like Troy Brown, had no receiving production for 3 or 4 years, finally gets his chance after Welker leaves and just takes over, but so dynamic. I mean, a college quarterback, Kent State, like a legit quarterback. It wasn't like, hey, I'm playing quarterback, sometimes I'm half, thing. They ran a crazy offense at Kent State, and he becomes this wide receiver who was a 7th round pick, but was so explosive and uncanny. And I remember saying pretty early when he started coming up, I'm taking him over Welker because he's making guys miss. He's making plays on his own. The combination of what he could do with his mind meld and with Brady, and the way he was just physically gifted at getting open and doing things after the catch. He was such an integral, awesome just player. And so I don't care. I don't personally think he's a Hall of Famer, but I don't care that much about that when like that's dominating the thing. He had something greater, which was like, you knew him. Everybody, you knew him. He was in all the big spots. He played his best in the biggest moments. And it's like, what's better than that? That's what people know.
I mean, not here to judge our contemporaries, but it just seemed lazy to just break it down to just, is he going to Canton or not? When some guys, that's not the best way. Now, could he go to Hall of Fame? He could. And I think his playoff resume is a big part of that. He had 118 catches for 1,422 yards and 5 touchdowns in the postseason, which is crazy. When I think about his big playoff moment, Marc, you and I think Wess might have been with us as well. We were at Rocco's in Culver City. It was a great back and forth playoff game with the Ravens. I think it was the last Joe Flacco flash in the postseason where he was just going toe to toe and outplaying Brady for a stretch of that game. The Patriots come back from multiple scores, and the turning play of the game was Julian Edelman throwing a perfect deep spiral on a trick play to Danny Amendola. I mean, he was just like the exact type of guy, not to bring it back to baseball, but when I think about my own dynasty I had in my life, the Yankees, Bernie Williams, he was the Julian Edelman of the Yankees. He's not going to the Hall of Fame. He was never the best player on the team, but you can't imagine how they would have been able to sustain the greatness that they did without him at the center. And I think he's one of the great all-time glue guys. I think Edelman is when you think about what it means to be a glue guy, Edelman was that for the Patriots. I still kind of think he's going to end up on the Bucs this year, especially after the alien close to the video, which makes me think everything was totally a farce and insincere before that. But if this is indeed the end, and his body's probably telling him it is, it was an awesome career. Canton or no, that doesn't matter.
I mean, speaking of the Bucs, I just think that he was genuinely, not in a malicious way, but just hurt by Brady leaving. I don't think he was the same after that. I mean, if I can't think of a player who bought in more to what Tom Brady was selling in New England, and they just, I think Gregg used the word mind meld. They were in the biggest moments in January when it mattered the most. They were linked, and I cannot think of him in a different uniform as much as it was weird to think about Brady in a different uniform. I mean, he really was the New England Patriots, and you're right about the glue guy thing. And he's a special player. He was a college quarterback. He had to come in and be so many different things to keep his role initially in New England, and he found every possible way to contribute, and that's a total Bill Belichick type player right there.
His body was broken. I know we should move on, but the last thing was him winning that Super Bowl MVP in the Rams game on a season where he was dragging that knee around. That's the thing is I don't know if he's coming back because no one took more hits than Edelman over the years and just seemed to be totally spent. And look, I get it. Patriots fans are obnoxious. He was a small white guy that got too much love because he was a small white guy, but it's it also doesn't change that he was just such a badass as a player, and I don't know. He'll have the last revenge because this Hall of Fame thing will be so annoying as a debate for the next 15 years.
Horrendous. It's a horrendous conversation.
It's a bummer of a way to go out on his career. I would think Edelman will say that to you if you ask him the question too,
That's
which
true.
is to go out in 2020 with a bad 7-9 Patriots team. His best buddy Tom's not there. It's COVID, so there's nobody in the stands. He can't get out. He can't stay on the field. It makes me think of because Marc, I think you nailed it. I think he probably felt like when Brady left, his career in a lot of ways ended as well. When Red was thinking about Andy after Andy escaped, and Red's still in the prison in Shawshank, and he just goes, "I guess I just miss my friend."
No, bingo.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way Julian was in his final season. All right. Speaking of future Hall of Famers, potentially, Jadeveon Clowney has found a home.
Stop.
As predicted, it happened. Jadeveon Clowney is on the Cleveland Browns. As predicted, it's a 1-year contract loaded with incentives that get up to $10 million if he plays well and stays on the field. And as predicted, Twitter went crazy with photoshops of Myles Garrett next to Jadeveon Clowney and various stories about the Browns' big offseason capped with a big move. All that to me is hokum, as Dave Damashek would say. But at the same time, do I hate the move, Marc? I don't hate the move. It's worth a shot, but just buyer beware. You're not getting the guy. You're not getting the guy that was blowing up that running back in the backfield at South Carolina. You're getting a potentially broken down near 30 guy that has struggles to stay healthy and has never put up huge numbers.
Well, I think, we did a network hit with Baldy, and he said it, right away that he needs to be in shape. He needs to get his body ready for football. And
have you guys heard a lot about that? Because when Baldy said that raised my eyebrow a little
bit. No,
it
did.
If
it
that's
did for
like
me
in
too.
football circles,
a little
like
bit. He definitely wanted to get that out there. And Baldy talks to coaches, and Clowney's had a lot of surgeries in the off season over the last few years and missed a lot of off season work. And yeah, I think that's a factor to it, but that's what he was speaking to, that he was not showing up in the right way.
I just think like the reason that I'm not, I don't think it's a reason to say it's a tipping point moment for Cleveland, and now they're unstoppable. It's like we shouldn't be looking at Jadeveon Clowney that way. It's maybe you get 10 games out of him, 11, I don't know. They took a bit of a risk signing Takk McKinley too, and so maybe the combination of those two guys and someone that you draft or a couple guys you draft form that right side of the defensive line across from Garrett. I don't think it's a Clowney come in and save the day type move. I mean, the Browns, I think, under Andrew Berry have done a nice job this offseason. The way they did last year, focusing on tight end and offensive line. This time around, the need on defense was clear. I mean, they were lashed on defense, and they were injured a lot last year, but they have shored up their secondary. They got Grant Delpit back. I really like the signing of Ronnie Harrison during the year last year. Their secondary looks like a strength right now, and that kind of thing can really help the pass rush. So maybe part of it is Clowney in a better situation than he was in Tennessee or in previous years? We'll wait and see, but he's going to a pretty good team where I think he is being put into a position to succeed, and he sounds motivated. I don't know what that means in real life, but listening to him yesterday, he said that the Browns and Andrew Berry were like relentless in pursuing him, and that mattered to him. That has to matter, 16 games or 17 games during the season too. I mean, I think sometimes you look at Clowney and like, is the motivation there? I don't know. I don't want to speak for him, but he's a player with question marks. I'm not just suddenly, because he's on the Browns, like doing the thing that a fan does where it's like, hey, he's my favorite player now.
I am. I love Clowney. First of all, he's 28. He's been incredibly productive in his career because pressure is production. And to me, he's been one of the 10 best defensive ends over the last years. Now, the last 2 years been totally injured. Before that, though, no one played more. So it's always been this public perception he's playing through injuries, but he played 1,000 snaps a year. He was tough. Maybe he is more motivated now. But here's the thing: there's a no risk. $7 million is nothing to me. Cap space is such a waste to me. I still don't get why this isn't like more talked about. Why do 6-7 teams, even in this year where the cap went so down, still have more than $25 million in cap space? What is that doing for you? Ultimately, you're not really going to the max of using all the resources you can to make your team better this year and spend all the money you can to win this year. There's no impact on next year. It's $1 million. It's a 1-year contract. There's no risk to it to all. You're taking a resource and you're doing it with a guy who's gotten double teamed as much in the top 5 players in the entire NFL since he's been in it, including the last few years. So he's used to those double teams. He's used to winning battles, even if he's not like the best pass rusher in the world. Like, I love it. Give me some Clowney.
Listen, this is and I'll say the point. I don't want to belabor this, but you're talking about the guy like he's a star, basically, and it's like
just
that. Why is he on his 4th team in 4 years? Why is he struggling to find a job deep? It's for a reason. And Baldy, like we said, plugged in as anybody. Is this guy doing the right things to be the best version of himself? No one's saying it's a bad signing. I'm not saying it's a bad signing. It's just kind of like buyer beware a little bit. Let's I don't know, just calm down a little bit about it. See, you're part of the reason, Greg. You're those guys that are saying he's like this. And by the way, he could also be seen. You say, okay, no, it's no risk. It's $7 million. What does that mean? But there's that old term, the old Parcellsism. Maybe you could get somebody better in that spot, someone younger. Maybe Clowney at this stage of his career is a progress stopper. That's all.
We'll see.
That's right.
He's 28. They can still
play the guitar.
Draft someone. They can still draft someone. I love it. I also just like you love this signing because.
I got to do it. It's good for the podcast.
It's good for the podcast. It's good that the Browns are getting so hyped now.
I got to do a sandwich prop.
There's almost only one way it can go, unfortunately.
It's only fair that I do a sandwich prop. It just makes so much sense. So I'm going to set Go get my lunch prop, and you guys could take me up on it if you.
I don't
will.
want it to be sacks. I don't want sacks.
It's going to be sacks. Okay.
No, I don't want sacks.
So don't do it. Don't take it. I'm going to set the over/under. He finishes below. Oh, this is a tough one. And Gregg is so high on him, but he's not a big sack.
Give me some hurries. Give me pressures. Okay, I'll take 4.5. I mean, you said it.
If he hits 5 sacks, you guys get the sandwiches. He finishes under. If he finishes under, you guys owe me. You're taking me 4.5.
You better take that. I mean, that is a low number there, Marc.
I'll take you. I mean, I could see it go either way, but why not take you on it? Sure. I mean, it would be amazing
I feel good
to win,
about 5. I thought you were going to go like double digits.
I mean, he's never had 10. So, I mean, to act like I can't set it at 8.5 or something. I'm going to go on the low end. I know
tackles
he's an
for loss,
guy
QB
and all that
hits,
stuff.
hurries,
Yeah, I know.
runs.
But wait till 3 of them come on Zach
Generational.
Wilson. Then you're going to feel your sandwich bet.
Gosh, we are going on too long. Baldy did mention how teammates like love playing with. I do remember being there when he was the kind of the leader of them winning their first playoff game in franchise history, and I think his teammates love him. It's not like a guy like, I don't think it's like you're adding something that's bad to a locker room by any means. I think players are impressed by him, and he was the guy there. J.J. Watt was hurt, and he took over and won him a playoff game.
Meanwhile, Seahawks fans are saying, why don't you talk about our overhyped veteran pass rusher that we just got? Alden Smith, formerly of the Cowboys, signs a 1-year contract with the Seattle Seahawks. Here's another guy that, depending how you look at the tape and what numbers you look at, had a nice season with the Cowboys last year. He did have a 3-sack game early on, but finished with 5. Did get to the quarterback, Gregg, with some regularity, maybe wore down as the season went along, but played a lot of snaps for that Cowboys team, which I think surprised people. Do you think this is an impact signing for Seattle?
I think it's worth a shot because they've left themselves a little thin. He definitely wore down, so maybe he'll do better, in a lesser role. I know Seahawks fans are strangely excited about this defensive line. It's Poona Ford, it's LJ Collier, their first-round pick, who's been okay, not really great, but then you got Dunlop, you got Alton Robinson, who's shown some things. You have a second-round pick, Taylor, who didn't do anything last year, Darrell Taylor, Benson Mayowa, and then you add Smith to this. Like, Seahawks fans, don't tell them that this isn't one of the highest potential defensive lines in the league, which I don't quite get. It's like a lot of people, definitely, and he's one of them. I don't know if I'm buying it.
And other signings, Cordarrelle Patterson, he finds a new home. He lands with the Falcons on a 1-year, $3 million contract. Interesting to me that Patterson, and I understand, and by the way, the Graybeards are flying off the board now. This is the week where it's happening. I got a handful in the last couple days alone.
They wait for your article to come out. The GMs,
I know, and I honestly do appreciate it, NFL, our league. But it does surprise me. I know he's not a dynamic wide receiver and a running back. Maybe he's a gadget guy, so he's not going to ever be a linchpin of your offense necessarily, even if that's what I was asking of with the Graybeards. But just the impact that he has on special teams, that's such a big part of football. And having a guy at that, it's to me a big bargain for the Falcons, a big add at this juncture in free agency. And I just wonder why a truly elite special teams player who could flip fields and change games, why there's not a bigger market, even if he is somewhat limited in other ways.
I'm with you. I mean, I think, from the Falcons side of things, I love it. I think Arthur Smith is someone that's going to find a way to maximize someone like Cordarrelle Patterson. And, I mean, his special teams usage is excellent. And I mean, for me, the Falcons are a weird team right now. They have like 55 players under contract. They're about $4 million under the cap.
This is Marc's favorite tidbit of the offseason.
No, because
it is a good one. It is.
I think they're in a puzzle because I was reading some stuff where they basically can't even sign the rookie class right now. So it's like you're in a conundrum. There's no other team in that same. I know they'll figure it out, but it's like I think Arthur Smith is in a tough spot, and it makes me really wonder what they're going to do at number 4 and what could happen there. I think that is a huge pivot point in the draft.
The only thing I'll push back on there, Marc, is the narrative that Arthur Smith is going to be the one to unlock Patterson. I don't know if it's going to happen, if it hasn't happened yet, but my point being, that doesn't necessarily matter. if he's doing what he's been doing at special teams his whole career, it's to me a great signing, whether or not he finally finds a coach that unlocks his true potential as a playmaker.
I mean, that's what the market is for special teamers, basically. That's kind of the top of the market for specialized, just special teams guy is about $3 million. Like, he got 5, Patterson did, when people thought maybe he'd help a little more on offense. I think people have kind of given up on that. It's about what I think if the Patriots weren't already paying so many guys on their special teams, $2.5, $3 million, just to be special, they'd probably bring him back. But it's like, you can only have a couple of those guys at most on your team.
All right. That's what's happening in the news. All right, let's get into it. It just went up on NFL.com. And Greg, I don't want to start us off on the wrong foot here, but the headline of this piece, and it's a really good one, and everybody should check it out. General Manager Power Rankings, NFL Draft Edition, Slammer. You know that I'm the Power Rankings guy, right?
This doesn't. I don't like this at all.
Maybe the IP here, the intellectual property, is property of the old Zeuser, the old new Blue Eyes. Or the new old Blue Eyes. You're
giving me some memories of the old Power Rankings guy. I did not suggest that. I would not have put Power Rankings. Last year it was like GM rankings. This time I'm just looking at the draft only. I decided to do it only back to 2015. So that's on the editors. I'm not putting. I didn't do that.
I will be overturning some tables.
Of course, Gregg is going to throw someone under the bus, but readers in general should know that we essentially never create our own headlines.
All right. Correct? Well, with that out of the way, Gregg, I think things are moderately strained between us now over this. But since you did throw the editors under the bus, I will overturn some tables, even if it's virtually to right this wrong. But in terms of the article you wrote, let's put the focus where it belongs. And I do like you changed it up this year. No, you're not involving trades when breaking down the merit of GMs. You're not including free agent signings. It's all on draft, and you went all the way down the list. And I get the feeling some GMs might be reading this piece, Gregg, and are holding their breath right now. Tell us, who do you have right now as the best GM in football when it comes to drafting talent?
I went Chris Ballard first.
What's your favorite type of frog?
He has the advantage. He's only done 4 drafts. So it's like, I think the longer you draft, the more of a chance you have for some clunkers. And even he... had a year, his first year there, 2017, there didn't hit a lot of home runs. But if you look at what he did when he first got there, Darius Leonard, of course, Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith in that same draft, who's a really good starting tackle, Naheem Hines. That's one draft. And then you look at last year, he almost drafted the Defensive Rookie of the Year, Julian Blackmon, and a couple good offensive players in Pittman and Taylor. Right now, his hit rate is like really high. So I feel like the other GMs looking at this list, Belichick's like, just let him do it for 10 years and think how good it's going to be then. But right now, Ballard is flying high.
I think there's nothing you could say against Ballard at this stage. I think what he's done so far is beyond reproach, really. Was there someone that was close? The number 2 choice here, was it close, or was Ballard head and shoulders right now above the rest?
I gotta admit, it was kind of like they were all close. When one thing I took away after doing this, and I went to Pro Football Reference, I looked at every draft pick. I had different methods, how many starters and Pro Bowls and different things. It's like the difference between the best GMs and the worst, when it comes to drafting over a long enough timeline, I don't think is like that huge. So especially the guys near the top of the list, Kevin Colbert with the Steelers is awesome. I mean, look at the receivers he's drafted in the last handful of years alone: Juju and Deontay Johnson and Claypool, and you add that to T.J. Watt and Dupree. He was right there. The one guy that surprised me being higher than I expected was Jason Light. Maybe I shouldn't be because they just won a Super Bowl, but when you think of Brady and Gronk and the guys they added in free agency being so important, but he drafted so many good players in Tampa, and his draft last year with Winfield and Tristan Wirfs kind of putting them over the top. Like, he was ranked number 3. I think Jason Light, who's seen some low rankings on the GM rankings before, he's going to be pretty excited.
Yeah, Light, if it's not just recruiting Tom Brady. Like, he set the table there with a really solid roster. And, we've talked about it on our show that how many good defenses existed last year in the NFL. 2 or 3. Most of them feel like, pushovers for the most part. The Bucs defense was a total game-changing unit, and so Light deserves a lot of credit. Colbert, to me, he has been doing it for a really long time. And you talk about, Ballard having a shorter track record, but a successful one. the Steelers have been mighty for so long under him, and he has become like the wide receiver drafting wizard. And I just think he's been an incredible asset to them, and like as consistent as you could hope for from the GM position.
Is there somebody, Gregg? And I look at this list, and I'm scrolling, and I'm scrolling, and I'm scrolling, and I'm like, where's Belichick? Where's Belichick? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 on this list. Bill Belichick was, first of all, as a Patriots guy, how hard was that?
And that's out of 23. I mean, 9 guys didn't even count because they're brand new and they've only done one draft.
I mean, did that surprise you, or did that kind of did that make sense to you as you did the exercise as confirmation that he's really struggled in this category in recent years?
It didn't surprise me because, just being a fan, like think of who are the good draft picks they've had. Joe Tooney, that was pretty good, but he's no longer on the team. That's not against him. Shaq Mason, and some other okay picks. I had to go back to Trey Flowers. I did my best pick, worst pick. I had to go back to 2015 and went Trey Flowers as like the best pick. They had those years, they had, because of suspension, they lose a draft pick and then they trade out. They haven't had a first round pick 3 times, but their picks have been pretty bad. I mean, the second round defensive back picks, I just want to read them off. And all of these picks were guys almost exactly that everyone watching the draft was like, really? All right, here are some defensive backs just since 2015 they have taken in the second round. Jordan Richards, Cyrus Jones, Duke Dawson, Juwan Williams, and Kyle Duggar. I like Duggar, by the way. He was a rookie last year. But the other 4, they gave him absolutely nothing. So if the Patriots' strategy is load up on second-round picks because they're cheap, they've swung and missed so many times.
And also, when you lose 14 first-round picks over a 20-year period for various cheating offenses, it's going to make your job harder. It's just there's no way around it.
That's a fair point. I mean, also they've been picking their first round pick has essentially been a second round pick for so long that some of these GMs where the team hasn't advanced as quickly as you'd like are picking in the 10 to 15 slot.
You know what? Colbert got it done. I mean, he's picking late.
They've had a few whiffs too, though. But I like Belichick. I think it is just the pure drafting because you want to talk about team building and leadership. I mean, Belichick is second to none. I struggled. My eyes almost blew up on a list where Belichick is 2 spots removed from Ryan Pace. I just struggle with the concept of it. But I see it's basically essentially on who they've drafted. And the Patriots, they've struggled in that area.
And
There's no question about it.
People like to get on Belichick for, he hasn't been that great at draft. They were a very good drafting, I would say, until this run.
Julian Edelman, 7th round pick.
It's sort of fallen apart ever since the draft where they traded up. People forget for Hightower and Chandler Jones and drafted them together. And since then, they have had trouble. Like Howie Roseman's another guy. Like I've done these GM rankings for years, and Roseman and Belichick, one year I think were 1-2, and Belichick's always won. And it was just like the body of his work over 20 years. And Roseman was always high. The Eagles were even worse in this exercise. I mean, the best player they've drafted that I could come up with in the last, 4 years since he took back over, or 5 years since Roseman got back out of the side of the building he didn't like, was Dallas Goedert. Like the next one was probably Wentz and Jalen Mills and then a lot of misses for
I want to be if we ever, who knows where our career goes from here, but if we ever ended up working for a team website, it was the Eagles, I would demand to be on that forbidden area of the NovaCare complex in Philadelphia where all the ghosts hang out, the ghost of Chip Kelly and old Howie Roseman and that analytical guy that Roseman hated. I just want to be in that dusty cobweb area of the NovaCare complex.
I tend to think they would place your office as far away from sort of the nerve center of football activities.
What would your role be? We would be kind of
we would be Eagles podcasters. I mean, this is
okay. Baldy
kind of a
does
grim
that
reality.
a little bit. Weish is working for AtlantaFalcons.com now, or the Falcons. So congrats to him.
You try telling Baldy that he has to go sit in an office off in the distance.
We need. How about I guess it's only going to work with the GMs that I praised. John Robinson, I put you up at number 6. Not a lot of John Robinson love out there.
I put you up, he says, assuming John Robinson watches the show. I love it.
How about Jerry Jones? People make fun of you all the time. You're in the top 8. So way to go, Jerry Jones. So if you got any extra scratch sitting around, you need 3 podcasters to just do an incredibly positive Cowboys podcast. We could do that for the right.
And
price.
Stephen Jones is like, can you at least give me a slash and put me in the conversation?
I know.
Come on,
I don't
bro.
know. I don't know what to do there. It's probably
the guy
not
that
really
cleans
Jerry
the glasses
Jones at this point, but you don't really know.
Like the guy that cleans Jerry's glasses, get him on a slash there. Finally,
right.
John Gruden, Mike Mayock, dead last. Now, listen, man, I get it, but I also don't get it because there has been. Here's the thing. We talk about this sometimes. We're talking about Cliff Kingsbury, for instance, and whenever I say he's on the hot seat this year, you say, well, when you look at what they've made progress in, since he's been there. So maybe this isn't a playoffs or bust for Cliff, and maybe you're right about that. With the Raiders, he inherited an awful team, John Gruden, and he rebuilt it to the point where they are very competitive. They've failed in recent Decembers, but I feel like there's more foundation since he's been there than there was when he came aboard. But you have him dead last with Mike Mayock along for the ride, so you don't agree, obviously.
Someone had to be last. Gettleman was second to last. They've only had 3 drafts since Gruden's been there. They've had like 5 first-round picks in the last 2 drafts, and the best one is probably Josh Jacobs, who didn't look great last year. Overall, I mean, it was okay. Cleveland Farrell at number 4. Jonathan Abram was a bit of a fiasco. Like, everyone was kind of like waiting for him to come back from Hard Knocks, and he struggled last year. Like, the guys they drafted who looked good in 2019 didn't look so good in 2020, and they've had some pretty big swings and misses otherwise. So he was hurt because there's only 3 drafts to judge off of, and they've had a lot of premium picks, and they haven't really hit like any big ones, I would say.
I mean, you'd have to look at the Khalil Mack trade and the haul that they got in return, and I don't think it looks that impressive, but I'd always have a question with the setup in Las Vegas. You've got Gruden and Mayock, and I mean, Mayock is an alpha male, and I think he's got a good eye for talent, but Gruden always feels like he'd be a coach that is going to grab as much power as possible. So when you have to put them together like you did, I don't know who takes more of the blame there, though. But I do think they have gotten better. He inherited a disastrous Raiders team.
Here's my theory, by the way. I think he's a really good offensive coach. So I think he's coaching them up offensively really well. And the rest of it, you go off the board a little bit. You take Farrell number 4. You take Ruggs ahead of some really talented wide receivers like Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. You're sticking your neck out a little bit. You got to be right on those picks. It's early, but
the Farrell and some moves they've made in the defensive front confirm some doubts about Farrell. And yeah, Ruggs needs to hit. Ruggs needs to hit in a big way, especially with Justin Jefferson being all world in his first year in Minnesota. All right, check it out, NFL.com/Rosenthal.
If Mayock ever comes back to NFL Network, I just hope he won't know about this. It seems like they always find out somehow.
We've known you for like 10 years, Gregg, and like half of your relationships are like Larry David. There's like some uncomfortable nature to them. So it won't be, I'm sure you'll be okay with it. You'll be cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he was texting me to go play doubles or anything.
No, he definitely was not.
Gregg's like our version of Larry David. All right,
take it.
Moving on.
Larry
Next.
David money. Give me it.
All right, we'll work on that as well. All right, good talk there. What a show. Zak Keefer talking about the mailman. Did some good news. Gregg's GM column, fire. And now, to cap things off, it is draft season, so let's get a rising star in the draft analysis game. He is a contributor for The Athletic. He writes draft reports for Bleacher Report, and he is a second-time visitor to the Around the NFL podcast. Let's welcome back Nate Tice. Welcome back, buddy.
Thanks for having me. So 2 times, when is there like a cap after 5 or like a T-shirt with your name on it after 10 or something like that?
No, there's definitely not a cap, but this kind of this piqued the curiosity of our listenership for sure, that I kind of let it slip that we do have like a hit it and quit it club. People that are one non-hit wonders.
the check the box club kind of.
Yeah, and if you don't bring the heat and for whatever reason you rub us the wrong way, whether it's your performance or even your internet connection, it could be your history. So Nate, I think this confirms that we view you as an asset on the show. And it's a Marc and Gregg will test the draft blind spot. Maybe is a little too strong, but also spot on. We need help sometimes.
I don't think it's too strong. I think it may be accurate.
Yeah, it might be spot on. It's not our thing. We really take over. We take the baton once these guys hit the pro level. but we need help, and we want to talk about some of these prospects that are interesting to you. Let's start at quarterback, Nate. I mean, everybody loves to talk quarterback. Justin Fields is a guy who, it depends who you talk to. You know, obviously he's one of those guys that's a somewhat polarizing figure. Where do you fall on Fields and where he fits into this, and whether people will be smacking their foreheads one way or the other a couple of years from now about where he went?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Fields. I have him. Originally, it was the big four quarterbacks, and then all of a sudden, now it's a big five all of a sudden after we just watched Mac Jones for an entire year, but also now everyone wants to love him for this past month. But I have Fields at two overall, my just prospects, and also just behind Trevor Lawrence. And I think he's closer to Trevor Lawrence, who I do view as truly a generational quarterback prospect. I view Fields as closer to him than any of the other quarterback prospects. Like I'm extremely high on him. I just think he checks all the boxes, especially as a modern quarterback. And not everyone wants to talk about, oh yeah, he's big, he's athletic, the classic trait stuff, but he's just so intelligent, and just what he does every week in, week out, what he was doing with the Ohio State offense, because it's just such an aggressive offense that's very down the field, very, very just attacky. I mean, actually, it's if you guys remember, like the late Denny Green and my dad's offenses in Minnesota, like that type of scheme, just everything's down the field. And he's so accurate at all three levels. That's what stunned me. I had heard of Justin Fields. You guys said, oh yeah, we don't focus on these guys until they're in the NFL. I'm about a half step better than you guys. Like I watch Wisconsin football games, a couple other big games, and that's about it. Like 10 college games a year, basically. And so I was like, all right, what's the hype on this guy? I watched him. I was just shocked how accurate he was. And I mean, it's all three levels, and he has the athleticism and the body control to kind of like, even when he's off balance and anything like that, still putting it on the money. So I think he really is almost as complete of a package as you can get at the quarterback position.
I love it. I mean, he does throw dimes. That's the thing. Like you watch him. I'm no draft Nick, but it's like 55 yards down the field, like it's nothing.
Yep.
On the spot, like accuracy should be the number one thing. And it's funny. I've watched what's happening this week in the cognoscenti, and it was predictable. They're getting to the point where I at least felt like I was thinking about a couple weeks ago, which was just like, well, maybe let's not spend all this time killing the Mac Jones pick before they make it for the 49ers. Because it's like, what? I mean, granted, a lot of pre-draft process, talk is like a waste of time. I think the fact that there was no combine here, like this was the time of year, by the way, our friend Chris Wesseling, he hated this time of year. Because it's like it's a lot of hot air. It's a lot of narratives changing without anything changing. But my thing was kind of like, okay, we have all these smart people. You're watching Justin Fields. He's a pocket guy. He can throw off platform. He's accurate. I don't know. Maybe the 49ers don't want him. Maybe they do. But, like, let's see what happens before we kill it. And maybe by the end of this process, they do take him. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, actually, that makes sense. Like, are you with me? Are you with me that they could do that, or that they could take Trey Lance, and that maybe this is just like a whole bunch of people being wrong? By the way, Adam Schefter and Rappaport are often wrong on like predicting where the draft guys are going to go. It's just a fact.
I plug my fingers in my ears and just go, as soon as I have my opinion on a player, I just go la 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 la, because it's just like, what is a pro day in shorts going to tell you? Like, why does that change anything? We overestimate how much that changes. Maybe it does. I mean, for some decision makers, sadly, but it's like, what changes with these guys? We have the film on them already. I do think it is a smokescreen. I do think at 3 they're going Fields or Lance. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, you just watch these guys and you're like, I get it. Mac Jones is a fine player.
Which one do you think if you had to guess? Because like Lance is a bit of a mystery to us.
I think Fields is the pick, but or what they would have above. But I can see the argument for Lance, and Lance I compare to Donovan McNabb. Like, if you want to get like a little close your eyes, like kind of like picture what a player he is, even the exaggerated over the top delivery, like watch him throw, like, and you guys will know the time period. You'll be like, yeah, and he wears number 5 too. So that also adds to it. So it's like, oh my God, this guy's a lot like Manette. He's big. He's like about 6'2" and change, but he's thick. He's very well built. All these guys are well built, except, Zach Wilson's a little skinnier, but I think it's Fields. That's a personal thing. But if they went Lance there, I get it. Like, cause his upside is just huge. And Lance is so much more, he's an unprecedented kind of prospect, FCS, all that stuff. You guys have heard it, even if you're not paying attention to it. It's that he was so much more intelligent and more polished than I was expecting when I was watching him. He makes adjustments and protections. He, which like you can tangibly see it. Like you can act, it's not me just guessing. It's like you watch him, he's communicating. And then after the fact, you hear stories about like, no, that's him communicating. He's changing the protection points. And he was doing that as a redshirt freshman, which is just like, holy crap. Like that is like some really, really interesting stuff to watch. And he's just very mechanically sound. He's almost sometimes a little too robotic. Like he's like too well coached. Like he's like, okay, get to the first read. Okay, now to the second read. Okay, he has to speed it up a little bit. But man, he has a lot of tools to work with. He's supposed to be an outstanding kid. You can see the intelligence every time he's playing, and that's really cool. So he's a little less of a project than even I was expecting when I was first watching him, but he still is a little bit, just, adjustment to the speed of the game. But I think it's Fields or Lance because I just can't see the move up for a Mac Jones, who I think is more like a Chad Pennington type than a guy that's like a MVP type candidate or a guy that's like an all-pro Pro Bowl candidate year after year.
Nothing wrong with Chad Pennington before the show.
No Chad slander on this.
It's a compliment and a diss. That's the thing. It's like
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I know. No, but that's why I'm trying. Oh man, I hate that I'm saying this, but people on Twitter like took that as a diss. I'm like, have you guys watched Chad Pennington? Do you remember Chad Pennington? Like this is like that was a high compliment.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, he was good. But that's a good little snapshot in your head of what I kind of project him as, more of like a number 8, number 9, 7 best quarterback in the league. Good, can be very good with a good system around him where, it kind of has a year where he has a Pro Bowl year with a really good team around him, but that's his upside.
You sound like you're talking about Andy Dalton.
A little bit.
Marc, what were you going to say, Marc?
Well, first of all, I am mystified by the concept of the Niners having to delve into smoke screens when they're sitting at number 3. I mean, it's one thing if to me, that's the whole separate thing. But I would ask this almost on behalf of Dan and Jets fans. Like, it's kind of ticketed that it's Zach Wilson to the Jets. I wonder, one, if that could change during this process. We're getting close to the draft, so maybe it's just their guy. But if you're the Jets and you're sold on Zach Wilson, what about him could sell you over Fields, over Lance, over the rest of these guys? Because, I mean, it just seems like a foregone conclusion that it's Lawrence and then Zach Wilson. And are the Jets that sure?
They seem like they are, right? I actually did say to somebody literally yesterday, I said, if Joe Douglas, this was the biggest smokescreen ever, and Joe Douglas ended up taking like Fields at 2, he'd be like my favorite GM. Right. Because like just to be able to like just get everybody off the smoke, off the scent, and just also goes completely different. Wilson he's exciting. That I'm going to openly admit that he's a very exciting player. I have a lot more negatives on him than the other 3 guys that we've already talked about. Well, we didn't really talk Lawrence, but you get it. But it's with Wilson. It's that creating the play, creating off the platform stuff. He is accurate. Like I do see a lot of the accuracy. My knocks with him was that he's skinnier. He's under 210 pounds. He played like 214 as pro day, but whatever, that's water weight. He's skinny. And if you're under 210 pounds, if you look at the history of quarterbacks that are under 210 pounds, I hate that I'm making such a big deal about weight, but it actually holds up. You have to be a freak athlete like Vic or Lamar or Marc Bulger. And that's it. Like that's right. It. If you're under 210 pounds, and that's a 6th-round pick, I think Bulger was.
What was your weight at Wisconsin? You were, famously Russell Wilson's backup. Were you above 210?
I was 232. I hung out with the linemen, so there was a lot of beer, a lot of unhealthy eating.
To that point, Nate. So you played D1 college ball. Is that something where these guys fill out? And now I'm talking as a Jets fan a little bit. The idea. Like, he's not going to probably be at 210 5 years from now, or certain body types, is he just always going to seem to you or probably end up as an undersized guy in terms of the weight?
I think
feels like it's something that could be addressed.
Well, you know how like Derek Carr's built? He's kind of thin. Like,
don't come at Zach Wilson right now, Nate. Dan's got his backup already.
I see that. But that's a great point. I think he is maxed out as far he can get stronger, and you can get it up to 210. But it's more like that's just a snapshot of his frame, and It's like he is skinny. I hate that I talk about like all these like body type stuff, but it does hold up. It's just like the skinny. He has kind of that skinny leg frame where it's like, okay, he seems to be already kind of. There's not like a lot of room for growth that I can see.
Yeah, but what about Tom Brady's combine photo, huh?
So, what is it gonna be that accurate and that like every single ball is gonna be on the money? See,
I mean, I'm a little uncomfortable, with this skinny shaming. It's tough out there for us small frame guys. Marc knows what I'm talking about. Like we were getting some nice swag. Thank you to the podcast department. Awesome. Like we got some swag in the mail. But it's like if you're asking for that men's small, they don't got it. They don't even have that as an option.
Hold on.
They're gonna go straight to medium.
Truck up here a minute, Gregg.
It's gonna be baggy. You wouldn't be small, Marc, but I would be. And it's like we don't have that. We're the medium.
Go ahead, Marc.
I'm a bona fide medium, and I view my body as just maybe a tick left of pristine. So don't clump me in with your business.
XL and proud here. Nate, so let's move off quarterbacks for a second.
I got back down to XL recently, and I'm so proud of myself. Like, I'm so proud of myself. Like, all of a sudden, be able to, it's so hard getting 2X stuff to like fit properly, and all of a sudden it's like XL. I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice. It's not everything's baggy. It's like this is great.
Yeah, THICC. No, so wide receivers. Let's talk wide receivers here. Ja'Marr Chase. Obviously, everybody's in love with him. Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, the two Alabama receivers. You see how in year one, these guys can hit and become immediate playmakers and stars, as we saw with Justin Jefferson, just to name one example last season. Outside those three guys I just mentioned, is there someone else in this draft class or a couple guys, however many you wanted to talk about, that jump out at you that could be immediate contributors?
Oh, yeah. One of my favorite players in the draft, period, and actually my receiver, too, ahead of Chase, which is kind of crazy. It's splitting hairs, is Rashad Bateman from University of Minnesota. And I love Bateman. I think he is just like a no-brainer, going to be a contributor day one type of player and has the upside to be more. Like, I am a big fan of his. Just the polish he brings, the route running. He's doing 301 level stuff as a true junior, actually really as a true sophomore was his real tape. This year was weird. He had COVID. He opted out originally, played a couple games, then he opted out again, like kind of a weird season for him. But his progression, he's super young too. He's 20, I think he just turned 21. He's only a couple months younger than Ja'Marr Chase, who everyone brings up his age. This guy was dominating too, but he was just, he's a couple months older, I should say, than Chase. But just that polish that right away he's going to be a route running technician. My original comparison for him was Allen Robinson. He weighed a little less. He weighed 190 on his pro day. And I was like, ugh, but then he had 33-inch arms. So I was like, okay, there we go. All right, there was the size that I was seeing. So really the comparison is more like a Calvin Ridley type. But just giving you like a little snapshot in your head of what his type of style is. He can play inside and out. Like I keep bringing up his route running because it's really impressive to see a guy doing that at a young age in college. And he's just a guy that does everything well or better. Everything's good or better. There's no like true weaknesses, which is really cool to see. A lot of his issues or like what people's concerns were with his speed. And I was just laughing. I was like, he's from Georgia, the state of Georgia, and he was a late bloomer, and then he went to Minnesota. And I keep making a joke. It's like, just because he went above the Mason-Dixon line doesn't mean he got slow. Like, he's still fast. Like he timed a 4.39 his pro day. He's more like a 4.48, 4.52 type of guy. But it's not a weakness. It's just like he's not.
Give it
he's
to
just
me.
not outstanding.
Give him to the Patriots then.
If
they can't get Fields,
fit.
I mean, my dream scenario is definitely Fields falls and they like trade up to 9 with Detroit or whatever the number, and they go get Justin Fields. But backing that up, try another receiver. Give up on N'Keal Harry. This is a deep receiver draft. Listen to Nate Tice. I mean, you're saying he's up there with Ja'Marr Chase. Some people think he might not even get drafted in the first round, so that is a bold take. This is much like when our friend Spice Rack came on and went hard on, was it Jonathan Williams? And really his reputation as a draft analyst was going to be based on that player. So if
tarnished
you want to be
recognition.
Right. If you want to be on the 3-timer club, Nate, I think it's going to really depend on.
You're going to have to hit.
It's going to be 1 year later. Like we have to wait all the way. So it's like we're proof in the pudding. No, I honestly am a believer in this guy. I just think the qualities he brings. But actually, that's one of my favorite fits is the Patriot fit, because especially with the guys they signed this offseason, his skill set is just like a perfect synergy for what they need because he can be like a true X and then move around on like third down, just like Devontae Adams does, comes in the slot on third down. Like he can do that stuff. And I think he can do it early on. So that's why I'm just so high on him, as you guys can tell, but it's good. I can't wait I'm glad I stuck my flag in somebody already. And now reputation staked on that. That's great.
I have a weird one for you. So one thing that I've heard little whispers of like over the years is that, society's changing. A lot of guys just aren't as tough as they used to be. We don't have as many like farm boys and stuff. Do you worry about the future of, for instance, just offensive linemen in general, where that position comes from? Like, is there at some point a scarcity of people willing to do that as their career and really even just have sort of the physical body for it? Or is that just hogwash?
Sit there quietly, okay?
A little bit of hogwash. I think as long as the money's good, it's going to, especially when tackles start getting paid a lot. Actually, it's kind of interesting. If you asked me that 5 years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I actually would have been like, yeah, I could see the concerns. And these last couple of draft classes and who's entering the league, especially last year's tackle draft, you can see like an influx of talent. More athletic guys are playing offensive line. It's very interesting. More guys that I think would have been pegged as defensive linemen, guys are like, hey, we can make this work. You don't have to be 330 now. You can be 305 and just be more athletic. The league's just becoming more and more an athletic league. I mean, it always is, but just more. I mean, look at linebackers. Like that's the number one position to look at it like. But I think more athletic guys are playing the O-line, and also in college, college coaches got so excited about running as many ball plays as possible, running 120 plays, especially in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. And then now they've kind of realized and found that sweet spot of 80 to 90 plays, because when they were running 110, 120 plays, they weren't teaching the O-line, like, don't finish. Just come back, get the next play. I swear to God, that was their coaching point. It wasn't like finish and grind them to the ground and like get back in the huddle. It was more like go. It was just trying to run a fast break offense. So no coaching was happening. And I think now it's like, okay, it's come back a little bit. It's swinging back just a little bit where these guys actually have to play football. And honestly, and the other position kind of changes. These top corners are getting bigger and bigger. You should see these top two guys this year. And I think it's because these guys, since middle school, the NFL's been a passing league since these guys were in middle school. So these guys would have been receivers. But now they're 6'1". They go, no, play corner. You're going to get paid if you play corner. These guys are getting smarter about that. And just like when all their trainers and all their family and friends around them, they're guiding them to different positions.
Nice
now.
try, Marc. You tried to bury the millennials. Surprising move by Marc, but it didn't work. And thank you, Nate, for sticking up for them.
Yes,
absolutely.
Greg, defender of millennials. Oh,
I love it. That's why you had me on the show.
Yeah, it's a cool millennial jacket. It fits. Nate, we feel smarter after having you on the show today, and thank you again. And we're all Rashad Bateman. It's all going back to Bateman. Rashad Bateman. This is what it's going to come down to here.
And
best
Fields,
of luck.
Fields being closer to Lawrence than
That's
he
a
is
big one too.
To
I like
Wilson
this.
and Lance. So definitely some Justin Fields. That could
This is good.
That could save you if Bateman doesn't work out.
You just got to hit on one of them.
Just one. All right.
Hit.
Got my two favorite players now.
Check out Nate Tice at Nate_Tice on Twitter and follow all his stuff. Obviously, a man who is plugged in and understands the game. Nate, thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Nate.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, there he goes. Good to have Nate on. Good show. A lot of stuff there. So, again, Zak Keefer at The Athletic. If you haven't seen the story, go read it on Chris Wesseling. Very happy how that turned out. And we'll be back on the network side Friday with, of course, the Around the NFL broadcast. Please check that out. And then back on Monday with another week of podcasts as we get closer to the draft. So thank you. Anything you wanted to add there? You get a little there, Greg?
Shout out to Stephen Cohen, the editor at The Athletic, who is a listener, and I know had exchanged messages with Wess over the years too, and was a big part of that article.
Yes,
so
we love
Stephen to do that.
He's a good man, good dude, and I know he played a role in the article seeing the light of day as well. So thank you to Stephen. All right, good stuff. This is Dan Hanzus signing off for Quiet Storm, the Old Boss, and Ricky Hollywood behind the virtual glass. Until Monday, heed the call.